At 69, I nearly died from a heart attack. My body's desperate cry for help after decades of relentless work. That moment, lying in the hospital bed with machines beeping around me, I realized I had been living a lie. My entire identity was tied to productivity and busyness, but at what cost? I had become a slave to my job, working late nights and weekends, believing that success was measured by how much I could accomplish. The irony hit me hard. While climbing the corporate ladder, I lost everything that truly mattered. My marriage crumbled under the weight of neglect. My spouse couldn't bear my work is life mentality any longer and walked away. Our children stopped calling, tired of being ignored or dismissed because I was too busy. I remember my daughter saying once bitterly, "Dad, you care more about your emails than us." Those words haunted me as I lay there wondering if this would be my legacy, a man who chose spreadsheets over family dinners, deadlines over birthdays. It wasn't until I turned 70 that I finally understood. Staying perpetually busy wasn't making me successful. It was killing me. Slowly, painfully, it was eroding my health, destroying my relationships, and leaving me hollow inside. What kind of life was this? A life where even breathing felt like a chore because I hadn't taken a real breath, literally or figuratively, in years. After nearly losing my life to a heart attack at 69, I thought I had hit rock bottom. But life, as it often does, had another lesson in store for me, one that would shake me to my core and force me to reevaluate everything about how I lived. For years, I had been trapped in a vicious cycle of mindless spending, buying things I didn't need with money I didn't have, all in pursuit of a happiness that never seemed to last. I shopped like there was no tomorrow, I told myself during one particularly dark night, staring at my bank account balance teetering dangerously close to zero. The final blow came when a so-called investment opportunity turned out to be a scam, wiping away nearly all of my savings. Overnight, the safety net I had spent decades building vanished into thin air. But the chaos didn't stop there. One afternoon, as I sat alone in my cluttered living room, surrounded by gadgets I never used and clothes still tagged, I received a call promising an exclusive discount on luxury items if I acted immediately. Desperate to recapture some semblance of control and perhaps even recover financially, I almost fell for it. My finger hovered over the keypad, ready to give them my credit card information, until something inside me hesitated. That hesitation saved me from becoming yet another victim of fraud. It was a wake-up call louder than any alarm clock could ever ring. Looking back now, I realized this wasn't just about losing money, it was about losing myself. Every unnecessary purchase was a band-aid over deeper wounds, the loneliness left by strained relationships, the exhaustion from years of relentless work, and the gnawing emptiness of chasing material success. By the time I turned 70, I knew I couldn't keep living this way. I decided to let go, not just of reckless spending, but of the mindset that fueled it. Instead of filling voids with things, I started focusing on experiences that truly mattered, meaningful conversations with loved ones, quiet moments appreciating nature, and rediscovering hobbies I had abandoned long ago. Letting go of mindless consumption freed me in ways I never imagined. For the first time, I understood that true wealth isn't found in what you own. It's found in the richness of your connections and the depth of your gratitude. After nearly losing my life to a heart attack at 69 and Realizing the emptiness of my endless work cycle, I thought I had begun to turn things around. But one day something happened that shook me to my core. A moment so raw and painful it forced me to confront another toxic habit I didn't even realize I had. Stress over the small things. It was an ordinary afternoon when my young granddaughter accidentally knocked over a glass of water on the dining table. The sound of shattering glass sent me into a rage, and before I could stop myself, I screamed at her, "Why can't you be more careful?" Her wide eyes filled with tears and she ran out of the room sobbing. That image, my sweet little granddaughter looking so frightened, haunted me for days. How could I have let something as trivial as spilled water provoke such anger? But this wasn't an isolated incident. For years, I had been living with low-grade anxiety, letting tiny inconveniences fester inside me until they exploded like ticking time bombs. Traffic jams made me clench my fists till my knuckles turned white. Petty arguments with colleagues left me seething for hours. Last-minute changes in plans felt like personal attacks. And all this pent-up frustration began spilling into areas of my life where it didn't belong, especially at work. One particularly bad week, after being stuck in traffic for 2 hours, I snapped at a coworker during a meeting. My sharp words created tension in the office, and later that day, my boss pulled me aside. "We value your experience, Bob," he said cautiously, "but if this continues, we may need to reconsider your role here." Those words hit me like a punch to the gut. Was I really about to lose my job because I couldn't control my temper? When I turned 70, I finally asked myself a simple yet powerful question every time I felt stress rising. Will this matter a year from now? Almost always the answer was a resounding no. Traffic jams will pass, spilled water can be cleaned up, and last-minute changes are just part of life. Letting go of these small stresses has transformed not only how I react, but also how I live. Now, instead of boiling over with frustration, I take a deep breath and remind myself, this too shall pass. After nearly losing my life to a heart attack at 69, sacrificing my health for relentless work, and losing nearly all my savings due to reckless spending, I thought I had hit rock bottom. But life, in its cruel wisdom, still had more lessons for me. For decades, I lived as a people pleaser, bending over backward to ensure everyone around me was happy, even if it meant neglecting myself completely. Family gatherings, I'd host them no matter how exhausted I felt. Friends needed favors, I'd drop everything to help. Colleagues demanded extra hours, I stayed late without complaint. It wasn't until I turned 70 that I realized the devastating boom this habit had taken on my mental and emotional well-being. The weight of constantly trying to meet others' expectations crushed me. I spiraled into a deep depression, waking up each morning with a suffocating sense of dread. I'm failing everyone, I would tell myself, even though I was killing myself to please them. Every night I relied on sleeping pills just to quiet the storm in my mind. "I've been drinking sedatives like water," I confessed to my doctor one day, tears streaming down my face. "But I still can't escape the feeling that I'm not enough." That's when it hit me. I wasn't just pleasing others. I was destroying myself in the process. My body was breaking down. My mind was unraveling, and my soul felt utterly depleted. One particularly dark evening, after another sleepless night spent replaying every unmet expectation in my head, I finally broke down. Sobbing uncontrollably, I realized that by prioritizing everyone else's needs, I had abandoned the one person who mattered most, myself. Something inside me shifted that night. I began to understand that self-care isn't selfish, it's survival. Slowly, I started setting boundaries, saying no when I needed to, and carving out time for myself. At first, it felt unnatural, even terrifying. But as I nurtured my own well-being, something miraculous happened. I found peace, not the fleeting kind, but a deep, enduring calm that radiated from within. After nearly losing my life to a heart attack at 69, realizing the emptiness of materialism, and finally learning to prioritize myself over others' demands, I thought I had begun to master the art of living intentionally. But life, as it often does, tested me again in ways I never expected. For decades, I was the person who said yes to everything: work projects, family obligations, social events, you name it. Saying no felt like an admission of weakness or selfishness, so I kept piling commitments onto my already overloaded plate. The breaking point came when I agreed to help organize three major events simultaneously: a charity gala for my workplace, my granddaughter's school fundraiser, and a community festival that everyone insisted only I could manage. I told myself I could handle it. After all, I'd been juggling responsibilities for years, but this time my body had other plans. One evening, while finalizing details for the charity gala, I collapsed at my desk and woke up hours later in the hospital, hooked up to IV drips and monitors. The doctor's words still echo in my mind. "You're lucky to be alive. This kind of stroke can kill you." It wasn't just the physical toll, it was the emotional weight too. Days before my collapse, I had made yet another sacrifice, canceling a long-awaited vacation with my children because my boss asked me to oversee last-minute preparations for the gala. It was supposed to be our first real getaway in years, a chance to reconnect and create memories. But instead, I chose work over family once again. When I called my daughter to explain, her voice was cold, distant. "Dad, we've been planning this trip for months," she said quietly. "Why do you always put everyone else first?" Her question hit me harder than any lecture ever could. Was this how they saw me? A man who would rather please others than show up for his own family. The weeks following my hospitalization forced me into deep reflection. As I turned 70, I realized something profound. Saying yes to everything meant saying no to myself, to my health, my happiness, and even my relationships. Each commitment I took on drained a little more of my energy, leaving nothing left for what truly mattered. That's when I made a vow. From now on, I would say no without guilt, without hesitation. At first, it was terrifying. Turning down requests felt unnatural, like I was letting people down. But slowly, I began to see the power in setting boundaries. Instead of spreading myself thin across countless obligations, I focused on the ones that aligned with my values and brought genuine joy. Letting go of unnecessary commitments didn't just give me back my time, it gave me back my life. Now, every invitation or request prompts a simple but powerful question: does this serve me? If the answer is no, I decline graciously, knowing that protecting my peace is far more important than pleasing others. What I've gained in return is immeasurable: deeper connections with loved ones, renewed energy for passions I'd neglected, and most importantly, a sense of freedom I hadn't felt in decades. Life isn't about doing everything, it's about doing what truly matters. And for the first time, I'm choosing me. After nearly losing my life to a heart attack, realizing the emptiness of materialism and learning to prioritize myself over others' demands. I thought I had begun to reclaim my sense of peace, but life, in its relentless wisdom, still had one more painful lesson for me. A betrayal so deep it shattered my trust completely. For decades, I prided myself on being loyal, especially to those I considered family by choice. My closest friend, someone I trusted like a sister, was the last person I ever expected to hurt me. We had shared everything: secrets, laughter, tears, and even dreams for the future, or so I thought. One day during a casual conversation at a community event, someone casually mentioned something that made my blood run cold, a deeply personal secret I had confided only to her. "How did you know that?" I asked, my voice trembling. The look on their face said it all. She had told them. In that moment, I felt the ground beneath me crumble. How could the person I trusted most, the one I called my sister, betray me so carelessly? It wasn't just gossip. She had used my vulnerability to gain favor with others, to make herself look better at my expense. The betrayal cut deeper than any wound I had ever experienced. Nights turned sleepless as I replayed every memory we'd shared, questioning how much of our friendship had been real. Was I ever truly valued, or was I just a pawn in her game? At first, anger consumed me. I wanted answers, apologies, justice, anything to ease the sting of her betrayal. But as the days passed, something shifted inside me. I realized that holding on to this toxic relationship was poisoning not just my present, but my future too. At 70 years old, I no longer had time to waste on people who drained my energy instead of nurturing it. Letting go of her wasn't easy. It felt like severing a limb, but it was necessary. In ending that unhealthy relationship, I discovered an unexpected gift: freedom. Freedom from bitterness, from second-guessing myself, and from allowing others to exploit my kindness. I began focusing on relationships that uplifted me, where trust wasn't a gamble and love wasn't conditional. Life after betrayal isn't about isolation. It's about choosing connections that reflect your worth. After nearly losing my life to a heart attack at 69, realizing the emptiness of materialism, and learning to prioritize myself over others' demands, I thought I had begun to take control of my life. But one day, a visit to the doctor shattered whatever fragile sense of security I still clung to. "If you don't change your lifestyle immediately," he said gravely, "you might only have a few years left." His words hit me like a sledgehammer. For decades, I had ignored my health, trading it for endless work hours, sleepless nights, and reckless habits that left my body battered and broken. The wake-up call came when I was diagnosed with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD, forcing me to rely on an oxygen machine for 6 grueling months. Breathing, the simplest, most natural act, had become a Herculean task. Every breath felt like dragging air through molten lead, and every step required monumental effort. It wasn't just physical exhaustion, it was emotional despair. I couldn't even play with my grandchildren without feeling like I was drowning. Looking back, I realized how foolishly I had taken my body for granted. While chasing promotions, accumulating possessions, and trying to please everyone around me, I had neglected the very vessel that carried me through life. At 70, I finally understood: health isn't something you can sacrifice today and reclaim tomorrow. It's the foundation upon which everything else is built. So I made a vow to put my well-being first, no matter what. I started small, incorporating changes that seemed insignificant, but quickly added up. Morning walks replaced late-night work sessions. Processed foods were swapped for fresh, nourishing meals. Meditation became my sanctuary, a daily ritual where I could reconnect with myself and quiet the chaos in my mind. These weren't just adjustments. They were acts of rebellion against the destructive patterns I had followed for far too long. The transformation wasn't overnight, but the results were undeniable. My energy returned, my mood improved, and for the first time in years, I woke up feeling alive instead of merely existing. Placing my health at the forefront wasn't easy. It required discipline, sacrifice, and saying no to things I once prioritized. But it was worth every ounce of effort. Now, as I walk through life with renewed vitality, I realize that taking care of my body isn't just about adding years to my life. It's about adding life to my years. After nearly losing my life to a heart attack at 16, realizing the emptiness of materialism and learning to prioritize myself over others' demands, I thought I had begun to take control of my life. But then life delivered a blow so devastating it shattered me completely. The sudden death of my spouse. It happened on an ordinary Tuesday morning. One moment they were there, planning our future together, and the next gone without warning. That night, as I sat alone in the dark, tears streaming down my face, I realized with gut-wrenching clarity that I had waited too long to pursue some of our shared dreams. I never took you around the world like we always talked about, I whispered into the silence, clutching their favorite sweater. The weight of procrastination pressed down on me like a leaden blanket. All those years lost to excuses. We'll do it later. There's still time. Now felt like a cruel joke. Time doesn't wait for anyone, and now it was too late. The days that followed were a blur of grief and regret. Every corner of the house reminded me of promises unfulfilled. The travel brochures tucked away in drawers. The map on the wall where we'd pinned places we wanted to visit, but never did. I couldn't shake the image of us growing old together, exploring new cities, tasting unfamiliar foods, laughing under foreign skies, all stolen from me because I kept telling myself tomorrow would come. But tomorrow didn't come for them, and suddenly I was left staring into the abyss of what could have been. At 70, I made a vow. No more waiting, no more excuses. If I wanted to live fully, truly honor their memory, and reclaim my own joy, I needed to act now, not someday, not later, but today. So I started small, booking a solo trip to Paris, a city we'd dreamed of visiting together. The fear of traveling alone almost stopped me, but something inside pushed me forward. As I stood beneath the Eiffel Tower, tears welled up again. But this time they weren't tears of sorrow. They were tears of liberation, of finally stepping out of the shadow of procrastination. Each step I took toward fulfilling my personal goals became a tribute to their life and a celebration of my own. Now I approach every dream with urgency, knowing that time is both precious and fleeting. Life is too short to delay happiness. After nearly losing my life to a heart attack, realizing the emptiness of materialism, and learning to prioritize myself over others' demands, I thought I had begun to master the art of intentional living. But just when I thought I was in control, life threw me another curveball, one that tested not only my resilience but also my ability to embrace change. For 40 years, my family home had been more than just four walls. It was a sanctuary filled with memories, laughter, and love. It was where my children took their first steps, where we celebrated birthdays and holidays, and where I felt most grounded. But as maintenance costs skyrocketed and property taxes became unbearable, I faced an impossible decision: sell the house or risk financial ruin. The thought of leaving behind the place I called home for 4 decades felt like tearing out a piece of my soul. Yet deep down, I knew clinging to the past wasn't sustainable. It was time to let go. Selling the house wasn't the only challenge I faced during this period. At 72, I found myself grappling with technology in ways I never imagined possible. I'll never be able to use a smartphone, I used to say, dismissing the idea entirely. But necessity forced my hand. When my grandchildren started sending photos and videos through apps, I realized I was missing out on precious moments simply because I refused to adapt. So with trembling fingers and a stubborn determination, I began learning how to navigate touchscreens, download apps, and even join video calls. Each step felt like climbing a mountain, but slowly I discovered a world of connection I hadn't known before. Letting go of the house and embracing technology taught me something profound. Change isn't something to fear, it's an opportunity to grow. Yes, saying goodbye to the home I cherished was heartbreaking, but moving into a smaller apartment brought unexpected joys. I made new friends in my building, joined a book club, and finally had time to pursue hobbies I'd neglected for years. Similarly, mastering the smartphone opened doors I didn't know existed. Now I can FaceTime with my grandchildren whenever I want, access endless knowledge online, and stay connected to a world that once felt overwhelming. Change may be uncomfortable, but resisting it only holds us back from discovering the beauty waiting on the other side. Before I turned 70, sleep was the last thing on my priority list, a luxury I thought I couldn't afford. But life delivered a terrifying wake-up call when I fell asleep at the wheel and crashed my car into a ditch. Thankfully, no one was hurt, but the incident shook me to my core. It wasn't just the accident, it was the realization of how dangerously exhausted I had become. There were days when I would literally collapse face first onto my desk at work, too drained to even lift my head. My body screamed for rest, but I ignored it, pushing through fatigue like some kind of martyr. That near-fatal crash forced me to confront the truth. Sleep isn't optional, it's essential. Now, every night I create a calming bedtime ritual: herbal tea, soft music, and zero screens an hour before bed. The transformation has been profound. Waking up refreshed feels like unlocking a superpower. I'm sharper, calmer, and more present in everything I do. Sleep is no longer something I sacrifice, it's sacred. Before I turned 70, I was trapped in a toxic cycle of comparison, a relentless habit of measuring my worth against others. It all came crashing down one dark night when I found myself standing on the edge of an emotional abyss, contemplating ending it all. The trigger? A seemingly innocent reunion with old friends. As they shared their successes, luxury homes, high-powered careers, exotic vacations, I felt smaller and smaller, like a failure in a world that only valued external achievements. Why can't I be like them? I asked myself over and over, spiraling deeper into despair. That night, as I sat alone in my dimly lit room, I realized I had been suffocating under the weight of endless comparisons. They weren't just stealing my joy, they were killing me. But something inside me shifted after that terrifying moment. I decided to stop looking outward for validation and start focusing inward. I began journaling about my unique journey, celebrating small victories instead of obsessing over what I lacked. Letting go of comparisons didn't just save me, it transformed me. For the first time, I saw my life as enough, beautifully imperfect, and uniquely mine.